The Big Ten tournament pre-seeds have been released. Penn State has 5 number 1 overall seeds, including a surprising one at 149. Well, not surprising over here, but Shane Van Ness gets the respect that he deserves.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State Wrestling. Thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show. A live show to just react to the pre-seeds being released for the 2025 Big Ten tournament. Going to go pretty rapid fire here just to tell where everybody has been placed, where everyone's been seated so far. Bracket's going to be finalized. If you got a thought, you want to contribute your thoughts, let me know in the live chat for this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. So let's not waste any time. Beginning with Luke Lillidahl at 125. This one, not surprising at all. He is the 4 seed at the 120 in the 125 bracket, which means that he is most likely going to meet Matt Ramos for the first time of his career. Matt Ramos is the number 1 seed. Caleb Smith of Nebraska is the number 2 seed. Dean Peterson is the 3 seed from Rutgers. And remember, Lillidahl had lost to him 4-1. Lillidahl is the 4 seed. Joey Cruz is the 5 seed. I won't exactly guarantee that we'll get a rematch of Lillidahl versus Joey Cruz because I think that, 125 overall. Now, Joey Cruz has come on strong for Iowa, but I can't necessarily guarantee it. I think it's likely, but even still, at Lillidahl, we saw him tech fall. Joey Cruz in the Bryce Jordan Center, so Lillidahl versus Matt Ramos of Purdue is certainly what everybody should be expecting. At 133, Braden Davis gets the 4 seed. 133 pounds. Drake Ayala's number 1 of Iowa. Number 2, Lucas Bird of Illinois. Number 3, Braxton Brown of Maryland. Davis at 4. Dylan Chauver of Rutgers, number 5, who Davis had beaten. Number 6, the 6th seed is Jacob Van D of Nebraska, and that's somebody that Davis lost to fairly convincingly. And then Nick Bazak is somebody else that Davis had beaten. He slots in at the number 9 seed. So most likely you're going to get a rematch of Davis versus Chauver in that 4 and 5. And then winner of that is going to move on most likely to face a Drake Ayala. I can't see the likes of an Angelo Rini or a Nick Bazakis taking out a Drake Ayala. It would be shocking. Ayala is a national title contender at 133. Lucas Bird is a title contender at 133. But I think this sets up well for Davis. Davis going up against Ayala. I still would take Ayala most of the time, but I think Davis just matches up better with Ayala than he does with Lucas Bird. So those two, maybe they'll meet again. Dylan Chauver against Davis was close. Now, what to take away from that Davis match is the fact that when Davis wasn't 100%, when he was give or take 75 or 80%, coming in ice cold into that Rutgers dual meet since he had been missing time on and off, and he was still able to defeat Chauver. That tells you something when your conditioning is not at its peak, when you are not as healthy, when you are not at top gear, and Davis is able to go out ice cold, first match that he wrestles and defeats Dylan Chauver. I think that deserves a lot of credit there, or at least that gives a lot of favor to Davis in this rematch, where Davis necessarily won't be 100%, but when Cale Sanderson tells us that he is as healthy as he's looked all season, I'll take his word for it. I expect Davis over Chauver. I think Davis is one of the top 3 wrestlers here. And this is no disrespect to Braxton Brown. Maybe they do wrestle for that bronze medal here, but Ayala and Bird in the Big Ten title, that would make sense. Davis, but I fully expect Davis to take 3rd. I really think Davis will take 3rd here. And that's not exactly a hot take. He won a Big Ten tournament a season ago at 125. 141, no surprises here. Bo Bartlett is the number 1 seed against Jesse Mendez, and Brock Hardy being that 3rd seed. Hardy versus Mendez is going to be interesting. Now, I obviously am going to favor Jesse Mendez here, but I would by no means be surprised. I don't think Brock Hardy is too far behind either of Bartlett or either of Mendez. Vance Von Bauer or Sergio Lemley is who Bartlett would hypothetically face in the semifinal. And I think either of those wrestlers, we saw what Sergio Lemley did of Michigan against Bartlett in the Bryce Jordan Center. Lemley is a talented wrestler. He can upset anybody. He has that next gear that not enough people talk about. So if there's any dark horse in this bracket, it's Sergio Lemley. Watch out for him. 149. 149. The coach has got it right. Coach has got this one right. Shane Van Ness gets the top seed at 149. Made that argument for it when just kind of making some final predictions and expectations, and why I would say that Shane Van Ness, there wasn't a criterion, that there wasn't really a strong argument either way. I don't think you make a bad decision. The justification to say Ridge Lovett is the number one seed because he was the Big Ten title, he was a Big Ten champion a season ago at 149. That's understandable. Kyle Parko defeated that reigning Big Ten champion, and he being the one seed would make sense. Kyle Parko of Iowa. But Shane Van Ness, it was a solid major decision, but it was bordering on, hey, if this one goes a little longer, this one might be a tech fall here. Shane Van Ness dominated Kyle Parko, lost to Ridge Lovett convincingly, but results later in the season, I think you account for the timing of the results. Overall record, Shane Van Ness and Parko have a 17-1 record overall. I guess that second loss, I'm really not sure what the ultimate justification was, but it's so minuscule. You could have picked, they might have picked names out of a hat, honestly. And Shane Van Ness was the one that they went with there. But he'll most likely get a rematch against Dylan D'Amelio, that 4 seed. Jeff Byers and I talked about it, the voice of Penn State wrestling, how D'Amelio is another one of those dark horse. Oh, you have this 3-man race, but don't leave out D'Amelio just because he happens to be a 4 seed. So it'll be interesting here. But Van Ness, that one was close against D'Amelio, but I think it tells more about Van Ness that D'Amelio was so aggressive, was near perfect on his shots, and Van Ness was still able to fend him off and get that close win in that Ohio State dual meet. And then we move to 157 before we go to break and get the second half of the weight classes here. 157. No surprises. Ethan Miller of Maryland, number 1 overall seed. Tyler Kasak is the number 2 seed with that pending rematch of Antrell Taylor. Ja'Cory Teamer slots in as the 4 seed, which he just doesn't have a lot of matches he's going off of here. Not a lot of matches, so you can't really rank him any higher, even though he's ranked very respectively in any of them, Intermat or the coaches' rankings, or no, he's not in the coaches' rankings because he hasn't wrestled that much this season due to injury. For the sake of the competition, hopefully Teamer is healthy. I expect Kasak versus Teamer in the championship here at 157. I think Teamer is better than Ethan Miller. Ethan Miller, granted, I can't believe I'm trying to knock someone for going undefeated, but he still didn't face the top competition here, and he got away with one against Tyler Kasak. An injury default is an injury default in the scheme of things. If you do that in the Big Ten tournament, if you do that at NCAAs, it's a loss. So it counts the way it does. But we all know that Kasak was going to win that match against Ethan Miller. So he's kind of gifted the 1 seed here. Maybe Ethan Miller will make me eat my words, but I'm looking forward to that Kasak versus Taylor rematch, even though there is a gap between the two of them. And then more importantly, Kasak versus Teamer, where, remember, if you missed it, I don't know how, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but in the Bryce Jordan Center, that was that match where Kasak picked up Teamer, had him over his shoulder, and did a fist pump for the Bryce Jordan Center crown. Honestly, one of the most iconic moments from the season, maybe in the past 5 years for Penn State wrestling. We'll have 165 through heavyweight coming up after the break here. The pre-seeds have been released, and Penn State wrestling, great spots with where they were seated. More analysis coming up after the break. And today's show is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts. That's right, 200,000 parts from 400 plus of the top brands. You'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Do you need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, they're free. This is free. Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, or electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5, that is SH5, for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. Again, thank you for joining this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Going to rattle through these weight classes still, and then get to the live chat briefly. We're going to try to do this in 20 minutes. Getting actually ready to do another preview of the Big Ten tournament, so gotta keep moving with my schedule here. But thank you for joining me on this show. We pick back up with 165. Mitchell Messenbrink is the number 1 overall seed, as everybody expected. Mikey Caliendo is the number 2 seed. He's from Iowa. Christopher Minto, a lot of potential. He went 18-2 in his freshman season. First year starting for Nebraska. I like Chris Minto a lot. And then Bo Mantanona of Michigan is the 4th seed. So this 165-pound class, everybody can agree, not only in the Big Ten, but at NCAAs, it's Mitchell Messenbrink, then a large gap, then Caliendo, then a large gap, and then everybody else. I would like to see maybe a Christopher Minto shake things up, but Caliendo, if it wasn't for Messenbrink, would win an NCAA title, right? So this is a crash course here. Messenbrink, Caliendo in the Big Ten title. I'm not expecting anything otherwise. Same at 174, and I expect Messenbrink to win at 165. 174, Levi Haynes is the number 1 overall seed. Carson Harchla of Ohio State is the number 2 overall seed. Lenny Pinto is the number 3 seed. Patrick Kennedy is the number 4 seed. He is from Iowa. Another interesting one, a Jackson Turley of Rutgers, is Clayton Whitting of Minnesota is number 5. Jackson Turley is number 6 from Rutgers. Danny Bronigal is number 7 from Illinois. And this is a class where Levi Haynes is just head and shoulders better than the rest of the competition, but Harchla definitely gave Levi Haynes a fight, because when it comes to Haynes' overall strength, I think it was so surprising for a lot of wrestlers at that 157-pound weight class. It was that pure strength that Haynes has throughout the entirety of a match. He does not get tired, and he has top-line strength all the way through. Harchla matches that, and I think that was more or less of, not necessarily, I guess for a lack of a better term, a wake-up call for Haynes that, oh, he's matching my strength. There's somebody out there that's just as strong as me, that has the heavy hips, that is good in top position, right? So Harchla, I think, is an interesting candidate. If there's anybody that's close in the Big Ten bracket, it is Harchla. I'm eager to see if Pinto can maybe disrupt that from Nebraska. Pinto was a top recruit once upon a time from the state of Pennsylvania. He's the 3 seed, so he would have to go through Harchla. Harchla's just battled injuries. I think Harchla would actually be a serious an NCAA title contender year in and year out if it wasn't for the injuries that he's gone through in his career. So interesting to see. I will be very interested to see that rematch again take place between Haynes and Harchla. That's what I'm expecting. And I expect Levi Haynes to be a 3-time Big Ten champion when all's said and done. 184, similar to the predictions, similar to the expectations here between myself and Jeff when we talked about it. Carter Starachi's the number 1 overall seed. Max McAnally is the number 2 seed, undefeated freshman from Minnesota. Silas Allred is number 3 from Nebraska. Number 4 seed, Gabe Arnold. So Gabe Arnold is expected, based on the 1 versus 4 through the semifinals, we might finally see Starachi versus Arnold, but it just doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't carry the same publicity, if you will. I guess the excitement, because you got benched. Arnold got benched for Angelo Ferrari, not once, but twice. And I'm glad all of that is put to rest, because I never expected Iowa to enter Angelo Ferrari in the postseason here. So Gabe Arnold is the 4 seed. Jackson Smith, it is talented. Maryland wrestler. I would not be surprised if Jackson Smith wins that 4 versus 5. I would lean Arnold. Arnold's not a bad wrestler, but Angelo Ferrari is better. That's objectively and subjectively speaking. So Edmund Ruth this is a loaded 184-pound class. Edmund Ruth was someone that was an All-American a season ago at 174, and he bumps up to 184. I think he struggled a little bit with that weight change. Someone like a Ryder Rogotsky is this hit or miss wrestler. Ohio State's filled with them between Brendan McCrone and Nick Bazakis and Ryder Rogotsky. all of these guys can go out there, aside from Jesse Mendez, can go out there. They can beat some of the top wrestlers in their respective class. They can also lose to the ones that you shouldn't have lost to that guy. I have no idea how you did, but they are truly roulette wrestlers, if you will. You don't know what kind of spin you're going to get from some of these Ohio State wrestlers. So that's the bracket at 184. Strachey versus McAnally. I am eager to see that one, since that is... McAnally is going to be one of the future faces of 184 alongside Angelo Ferrari. I anticipate a Zach Ryder, so it's good to see the future in the present, how close he is to Strachey. Keep it going, 197, and these are the top 3 NCAA title contenders. AJ Ferrari, in my opinion, is 4th, but the way that they line up at Big Tens, they should line up at NCAAs too. Stephen Buchanan, Josh Barr, Jacob Cardenas, Isaiah Salazar of Minnesota is going to be the 4 seed. Zach Bronigal of Illinois is going to be the 5 seed. But really, it's these 3. Stephen Buchanan could win a title at Big Tens and NCAAs. Josh Barr could win a title at Big Tens and NCAAs. But so in the situation with 149, where when you avoid that 2-3 matchup, when you're Shane Van Ness, you get a favorable path into the championship. Josh Barr, that's how valuable the number 1 seed is. So Stephen Buchanan picking up all the results and the wins along the way, the 1 seed, you do yourself some favors here going into the postseason. So Josh Barr is going to have to wrestle Jacob Cardenas again. They are so close. I have no read on this. It is truly a coin flip. It went to tiebreaker, and it almost went to ultimate tiebreaker, but Josh Barr got the reversal. I don't know that that's going to happen again. We might see an instance where they go to ultimate tiebreaker between the two of them, but that's a semifinal matchup. Stephen Buchanan is much better than an Isaiah Salazar. He almost has a hop, skip, and a jump into the championship there. And then who knows? Are Josh Barr or Jacob Cardenas going to be worn down by the time they get to Buchanan? Fortunately for Barr, he wrestled Buchanan and then Cardenas back to back. He split between the two, but I think that experience helps him out at 197. Then we get to heavyweight, wrap up here. Gable Steveson is the number 1 seed, as expected, and Greg Kirkfleet is the number 2 seed, as expected. Crash course. The rest of the heavyweight bracket, I like all of these wrestlers. I like Heinzelman, Feldman, Luffman, Slavakuski, Ben Keeter. I know that they all, and they're ranked in there, they're seated in that order, 3 through 7. But any of those guys, there's not much that separates them. There's really not. Now, I'm probably partial to a Nick Feldman. I think a Nick Feldman will make some noise in the heavyweight class for years to come. But it is really a toss-up between any of those guys who takes 3rd place, even though I lean Nick Feldman because he hasn't been 100% this season. If he's 100%, do not look past Nick Feldman there. He gave Kirkfleet a fight at times last season. So Steveson and Kirkfleet, we'll see if the gap's closed. We'll see if Steveson's just that great and nobody's challenging him again. And that's going to be the final run for Kirkfleet. But I think Kirkfleet has closed the gap. It's just a matter of how much. So before I go, I want to check in on the lag chat. I appreciate it, really, on a Wednesday afternoon. Thank you so much for hanging out here on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. So I see that, yes, Parco, Van Ness, they're in the finals. Ridge Lovett gets a chance to get revenge, right? But I agree. I do think that Kyle Parco is going to meet Shane Van Ness in the Big Ten championship at 149, because Ridge Lovett, maybe it was an unknown injury that I'm not familiar with, but he fell off in the postseason last year after the Big Ten championship. And the 149-pound class a season ago did not have Shane Van Ness. It had a true freshman, Tyler Kasak, who Ridge Lovett defeated in Big Tens, and then he got to NCAAs, and like I said, he fell off. So what ultimately happened? What ultimately happened there? It might be the same thing. I don't know if it's a clutch factor. I don't know if it's nerves, but the competition is much better this time at Big Tens for Ridge Lovett. So I would go with Shane Van Ness and Kyle Parco. I agree. Yes, Penn State does rock. Ja'Cory Teamer is hard to predict. Doesn't seem to show up sometimes. Ja'Cory Teamer is interesting. I think he has all the talent in the world. And that's difficult for me to agree with, because remember, he wrestled Levi Haynes at the 157-pound championship. Penn State wrestlers just get the best of Ja'Cory Teamer. Where I will say Teamer backs up a lot when he wrestles. It's part of his strategy, but at some point you're going to run into the wrong referee crew that's going to call you for stalling more often than not. And then that's going to change momentum and change strategy. So teamers got to be careful with that, because you might get a referee crew that is whistle happy and calls stalling in the matches that really matter most here. Okay. And he hasn't wrestled much. So when you don't have the resume for this season and referee crews that have seen teamer time and time again, you just might get somebody that says, okay, that to me, that's stalling, and I'm going to give a warning. And then that point, that's going to be the difference in some of these semifinal hypothetical championship matchup. We'll see. I appreciate that. Always a pleasure listening to your podcast. All good seeds for the Lions. I don't think there's all of them are ideal or all of them are realistic. I don't look at, because we knew that at some point Luke Lillidahl was going to have to face a Matt Ramos. Now, preferably, you would have liked to meet Ramos in the championship, because that helps with NCAAs. I still lean Ramos. Jeff Byers is very much confident that the true freshman will get it done and knock off a Matt Ramos. We'll see. We shall see. It would not surprise me. I give Lillidahl a fighting chance. I'm still going to lean Ramos, because remember, he did defeat a Spencer Lee once upon a time. He's undefeated this season. He looks to be, he's full strength. They've kind of managed his workload throughout the season, but Lillidahl's a world champion. So I would not put it past Lillidahl. I think he's close, but time will tell. Time will tell when he ultimately meets Ramos in that semifinal. I disagree. What if Arnold pulls it off? This is a big match if it happens. Against Starachi, Arnold, I don't like the way Arnold's built for 184. I think he's wrestling too far. I think at some point, the way you're physically built matters. It's why Drake Ayala has been at force at 125 and 133, because he just has a longer build. He's just taller. And that's harder for some of the shorter wrestlers. So maybe, I mean, you could apply the same thinking in reverse. Well, because Gabe Arnold is built the way he is, he's so stout that if you're a taller wrestler, you're not going to be able to get in as low. I just don't think that a Gabe Arnold is going to have the reach to be able to secure a takedown against Carter Starachi. And Starachi just has such an offensive. Arnold's really good on defense, of course, but it's the offense advantage that Starachi has that's going to beat Arnold. So is it going to be this major decision tech fall? Maybe not necessarily, but I don't see Arnold getting a takedown. I see Starachi getting one or two. I think this might be a 7-1 or a 7-2 type of victory for Starachi. That would make sense. Carter Starachi for 5 straight. He'll have to go through Parker Kakaisen, but that's what I'm expecting. Teamer will beat Miller. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. That's where I'm going to wrap it up. I appreciate everybody's contributions in the live chat. Thank you so much for spending a Wednesday afternoon here on a live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. We're going to have more conversations, have a crossover episode with Locked On Hawkeyes to preview the Big Ten tournament. Now, it was before the pre-seeds were released, but that's going to be released. That show is going to come out tomorrow. And we're also going to get another Big Ten tournament preview now that the pre-seeds are released. That will be out on Friday. So make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Leave a like on this episode if you will. Share it with friends and family. I'm grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you again for checking out this live edition of the show. And I'll talk to you all very soon about your favorite Penn State sports teams, including wrestling, football, and men's basketball as always.